You are standing on the bank of a wide river on an early summer morning. The air is cool and clear, the sky colored by the pale glow before sunrise. Around you, tents and bivouacs lie in silent rows. Napoleon's great army is still resting, wrapped in morning mist and anticipation. You breathe in deeply and smell the scent of wet grass and river water. In the distance, you hear the faint sounds of horses stamping and men's hushed voices, the first signs of life in the camp. This morning, in June 1812, you understand that something monumental is about to happen. You are part of an immense army of hundreds of thousands of soldiers gathered from all over Europe, all under the eagle banners of Emperor Napoleon. The Niemen River still lies placid, mirroring the gray dawn, a silent border against the vast Russian Empire on the other side. You pull your uniform coat tighter against the morning chill and feel a tingling mix of excitement and unease in your chest. Soon the sun will rise, and with it you will break camp and march eastward. You let your gaze sweep over the landscape. On the other side of the water you can make out the silhouette of endless forests and fields in the distant Russia. Behind you, to the west, lies Poland and the rest of the empire you came from. But right now, in these quiet minutes before dawn, everything is peaceful. A bird sings softly from a bush by the riverbank. Your comrades in arms lie still, wrapped in blankets. You hear your own steady breath and heartbeat. The silence feels almost unreal considering what awaits. You know the Emperor himself is somewhere nearby, perhaps already awake and inspecting the crossing point. But in this moment, there is only you and the river, and a sky that is slowly brightening. You are present here and now, in the midst of history's whirlwind, yet embraced by this morning's calm. You let this tranquility fill you and prepare yourself. Soon the call to prepare for the march will sound, but for now, you rest in the moment, listening to the river's low gurgle, and let your thoughts drift like the patches of fog over the water's surface.
The sun has barely begun to rise when the silence is broken by the officer's shouts. It is time to break camp. Around you, soldiers rub the sleep from their eyes and roll up their blankets. The campfire, still faintly glowing, is stamped out. You lift your knapsack and musket, feel the weight of the equipment on your shoulders, and line up in the ranks along the riverbank. The column soon begins to move with a muted chorus of rustling from hundreds of thousands of boots, wagons, and cannons. Ahead of you lies a provisional pontoon bridge that the Engineer Corps has stretched across the calm river. The water laps gently against the wooden beams. One by one, the companies march out onto the bridge. When it's your turn, you feel the planks give slightly under your boots, and you look down at the flowing river beneath you. The sunlight plays on the murky water. Halfway across the bridge, the column halts for a moment. You hear a horse whine impatiently and a wheel creak. Over the railing, you glimpse the reflection of the soldiers as dark figures against the bright sky. Then you continue forward. Someone beside you whispers a short prayer. Another kisses a small gold cross he wears around his neck as he sets foot on Russian soil. The moment you step off the bridge and onto the other bank burns itself into your memory. You are now in Russia. Before you, a wide road winds between the hills and into the deep eastern forests. Behind you, the pontoon bridge snakes back to the west. You turn for a moment and see the morning sun glittering on the water and the endless ranks of soldiers still crossing. You march on into the unknown. The landscape here still resembles what you left behind, green meadows, scattered trees, and small villages, but it feels different, foreign. You hear fanfares in the distance as commanders mark the historic moment, yet the mood is subdued among the soldiers around you. Every man is lost in his own thoughts. You feel a mixture of pride and awe. You are a small part of this enormous wave now flowing silently across Russia's border. The march proceeds steadily, and to the sound of tramping feet and rolling wagons, you let your gaze rest on the endless road ahead, bathed in the golden morning light. You have now been marching for several days into the country. The The sun is high in the sky, and heat waves ripple over the dry road ahead. Dust swirls up with every step as the column grinds its way through a sea of golden grass. Sweat beads under your uniform cap, and your shirt clings to your back. You swallow to moisten your dry throat. Water rations must be conserved, and wells are far between here. Along the roadside, wildflowers and nutting sunflowers silently watch the endless line of soldiers pass by. Around you, you hear the sound of boots on the earth and the clinking of bayonets against knapsacks. An occasional bumblebee buzzes past your ear. Even in the middle of the day, a strange silence hangs over the landscape. No enemy appears. The Russian forces are simply retreating deeper into the country, always a little further ahead. You notice bewilderment and some unease among the soldiers. Why does no one meet us? How far must we go? But the question hangs in the heavy, warm air. At midday, a short rest is called under some scattered trees by the road. You sink down at the base of a birch tree and take off your pack with a slight sigh. The shade from the treetop feels soothing against the hot sun. You take out your canteen and let a few drops of water roll over your tongue, lukewarm but life-giving. As you rest your back against the rough bark, you let your gaze sweep over the column. Men are scattered along the roadside, silent or whispering. Some close their eyes for a moment. Others slowly chew on a hard piece of bread from their rations. The horses lower their heads and nibble at the dry grass. In the distance, you can glimpse a small village you recently passed. It was deserted and abandoned. The windows gaped empty, and no smoke rose from the chimneys. Someone must have set fire to the houses before they fled. The thought is unsettling, so you shake it off. Instead, you listen to the calm of the moment, the leaves rustling faintly in the breeze, a single grasshopper chirping somewhere in the grass. Your eyes grow heavy with fatigue, and for a few blessed minutes, you almost manage to forget the endless road that awaits. You breathe slowly in and out, letting your body recover in the shimmering summer heat. The heat gives way to heavy clouds that gather throughout the afternoon. You notice the wind picking up and a distant rumbling peal of thunder. Soon, raindrops drum against the leaves in your boots. What begins as a gentle summer shower quickly develops into a violent downpour. The road transforms into a muddy path under your feet. Each step becomes heavier as your boots are sucked down into the clay. Around you, the men grit their teeth and press on, water streaming from their hats and uniforms. A wagon further back gets stuck. You can hear the horses snorting and men shouting commands as they push on the wheels. Beside you, a soldier curses under his breath as a rut filled with mud almost makes him stumble. Lightning flashes across the distant sky, and another, deeper thunderclap rolls over the plains. You pull your cloak tighter and bow your head against the rain. The cold seeps into your body as your clothes become soaked. Yet the column continues relentlessly forward, albeit more slowly now. In your hands, your rifle is slick with rain, and your fingers are numb. The air smells of wet earth and sweaty horses, a heavy odor that fills the air along with the drumming of the rain. After what feels like hours, the rain finally begins to subside. It's as if nature is taking a breath. The cloud cover lightens a bit, and a faint golden glow breaks through in the west. You hear a sigh of relief pass through the ranks as you are ordered to make camp for the night at the edge of a forest. With stiff fingers, you help lift a cannon out of the mud and roll it into position. Your body is exhausted and drenched, but as you straighten up, you see a pale rainbow arching across the distant horizon. Raindrops hang like pearls on the leaves around you. The air is cooler now, fresh and clean after the storm. The night falls, quiet and cool. You light cautious fires with the dry wood you find under dense spruce trees. The flames dance and cast flickering light on tired faces. You sit close to the warmth and feel your body thaw. The grueling march through the storm is over for now. replaced by a deep, sighing calm in the camp. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the fresh scent of the wet forest. In the distance, you can still hear a final, faint rumble of thunder moving eastward away from you, as the night envelops you in a gentle, dark cloak.
Later that evening, a thick calm rests over the camp. You sit with a few of your brothers in arms around a small campfire. The flames cast a warm glow on your faces in the darkness. Sparks rise slowly towards the night sky, only to extinguish among the stars that are now peeking through. One of the soldiers, a young Pole, carefully takes out a small harmonica and begins to play a soft, melancholic melody. The notes float low through the camp, mingling with the sound of the wind rustling faintly in the grass. You pull a letter envelope from your breast pocket, a letter from home, crumpled from the journey, but precious to you. Carefully, you unfold the paper in the flickering light. You let your eyes glide over the familiar handwritten lines. The words from your family back home describe everyday things: the approaching harvest, how much they miss you, hopes for your safe return. You can almost hear your mother's voice in every word. For a moment, only these lines and the warmth of the fire exist. You read them slowly, over and over, and feel a pang of both longing and comfort. Around the fire sit men from different countries. To your left, an older veteran from Bavaria mutters a prayer in German before settling down to rest. On the other side, an Italian soldier sips a cup of weak coffee he has warmed over the embers. Even though you all don't share the same language, a sense of community is shared in this moment. Tired glances, a weary smile, a pat on the shoulder here and there. You are all far from home under the same starry sky. A French corporal breaks the silence in a low voice, offering you a piece of bread he has saved. Rations have become smaller in recent days, but tonight you share the last crusts of brotherhood without a word. The bread is hard and dry, but you are grateful. When the music from the harmonica dies down, no one fills the silence. Each one lets their thoughts drift. You lean your head back and look up. Above you, countless stars glitter cold and clear. In the shelter of the night's darkness, you feel your worries and strains seep away, like the smoke from the fire disappearing towards the sky. You close your eyes for a moment and rest in the knowledge that, for now, just for now, you are safe in the embrace of the night.
The days pass, and the enormous army moves deeper into Russia. In late summer, you finally reach a larger town where you get a respite. The town, Vitebsk, you hear someone say, has stone houses and cobblestone streets, and it is situated by a wide river. Many of the inhabitants have fled, but a few remain, staring fearfully and curiously as Napoleon's soldiers march in. For the first time in a long while, you will get to rest for more than a day in the same place. You are quartered in a simple wooden house on the outskirts of the town with 4 others. Having a roof over your head feels like a luxury. You run your hand over the rough timber wall and doors and feel the warmth from a small fire you have lit in the hearth. That night, you sleep on the wooden floor, but it feels almost like a bed after weeks on the ground. Outside, you hear rain drumming against the roof, but for once, you don't get wet from it. You fall asleep to the sound of raindrops and a distant lullaby some soldiers are singing in the neighboring house. The next few days are filled with much-needed rest and reorganization. Boots are repaired, rifles cleaned, uniforms dried. You are issued some extra bread and meat from the town stores, and for the first time in a long time, you eat until you are almost full. In the town square, officers distribute letters that have arrived.
The joy is immense for those who receive signs of life from home. Although many of the town's shops are empty, soldiers trade for some apples, a few tobacco leaves, or a bottle of local spirits from those who are still there. A small touch of civilization in the midst of all the hardship lifts the spirits in the camp. Many silently hope that Napoleon's army might stay here for the autumn, gather strength and wait for the Russians to come to them. You hear such speculations whispered among the men as you rest. But one early morning, abruptly and without much ceremony, the order comes: march at dawn. The emperor has decided that the campaign must continue. The decisive battle still lies ahead, and he does not want to waste time. So you pack up once again. The town's temporary shelter is left behind, and you take a final look at the smoke-stained rooftops and the quiet river glittering in the morning light. Soon the ranks of soldiers march out of Vitebsk's gates. Many are quiet, thoughtful. You feel a disappointment that the rest ended so abruptly, but also a strange relief. It feels right that the movement continues, that you are chasing the goal. The boots hit the gravel in unison again, and the echo of the boots in the town is replaced by the open silence of the country road. Ahead of you awaits more unknown miles of roads, and on the horizon, the promise of a great confrontation that will give all this struggle meaning.
The August sun hangs lower in the sky now, and the days are a little shorter. What should have been a lush, late summer landscape bears the harsh mark of war. You march through areas that seem more desolate with every mile. Along the road you see fields that once held grain. Now they lie flat and scorched, as if a firestorm has swept over them. In some places, charred posts stick up, the remains of farm buildings burned to the ground. The air smells of ash and wasted livelihood. You pass a small village in the middle of the day, or rather, what's left of it. The wooden houses are charred and collapsed. Only brick chimneys stand like lonely sentinels. A wind blows through the streets, swirling up gray ash. There are no people, not even animals, just an unseen silence. You notice a pair of black crows perched on a broken cart wall, croaking hoarsely. They fly off as you pass, their wing beats the only sign of life in the dead village. Thirst gnaws at you, and you scan for the well that is usually found in such villages. When you find it, you discover that the bucket and chain are gone. A comrade lowers his own canteen into the well opening with a string, but quickly raises it again with a grimace. The water smells foul and is full of soot. You realize the Russians have even destroyed the drinking water before they left. A heavy silence spreads as you gather to march on. Anger and frustration murmur through the ranks, but there is little to do but continue forward. As the afternoon wears on, the sky to the east becomes strangely hazy. A mist of smoke hangs in the air, tinging the sunlight reddish. Rumors spread back along the column. Smolensk is ahead, and it is said to be burning. You can eventually smell a faint scent of burnt grain and wood carried on the wind. When evening comes, you halt a few kilometers outside the city. Far away, you see an orange glow along the horizon. It must be fires illuminating the sky. You make camp in silence under this restless sky. You watch the flickering lights in the distance and feel an unease mixed with your exhaustion. But the night is quiet out here. Only the sound of someone coughing and the grass whispering in the wind mixes with your thoughts. You lie down with your uniform as a pillow and watch the distant flames until your eyes close. In your dreams, memories of scorched fields and empty villages mingle with a longing for lush green homelands.
The next morning, the battle for Smolensk is at hand. From dawn, the roar of French cannons positioning themselves and bombarding the city walls can be heard. Thick plumes of smoke rise from the city as shells hit, and a stench of gunpowder and soot spreads even to where you wait in readiness. Your heart beats fast, but you try to breathe calmly as you check that your bayonet is properly fixed to your musket barrel. Around you, soldiers whisper briefly to each other, adjusting straps and equipment, all with tense gazes fixed on the besieged city. When the signal to attack finally sounds, you are thrown into the unfolding chaos. You storm forward towards a section where the city wall has already been damaged by artillery fire. The smoke is thick, stinging your eyes and making it hard to breathe. You run with your head down, tasting ash on your tongue. Suddenly, you nearly trip over something. A fallen soldier lies partially hidden by smoke and rubble. You feel a jolt, but instinctively continue forward with the stream of your comrades. Inside the city itself, the sight is almost surreal. Wooden buildings are on fire, flames bursting from windows and roofs. Sparks drift through the air like fireflies in the gray haze. The streets are full of shattered roof tiles and planks. You hear shouts around you in several languages, commands, warnings, cries of pain. Volleys of gunfire crack in narrow alleys, the sound echoing between the walls and filling your head with a piercing noise. At the same time, you barely register your own senses clearly. Everything is a whirlwind of movement and noise. In a narrow street, your unit encounters resistance. Dark uniforms appear through the smoke ahead, Russian musketeers firing from a corner. A bullet whizzes past your ear. You take cover behind a stone wall that is still standing. Your hands tremble around your rifle as you reload. On signal, you spring forward and fire a collective volley. Through the gunpowder smoke, you glimpse the enemy soldiers retreating, and you advance step by step. The hours blend together. Finally, towards afternoon, the noise of battle gradually dies down. The Russians are withdrawing from Smolensk, it is said, fleeing further east to escape encirclement. You are left among the city's ruins. You pull yourself up and down a pile of bricks and timber, trying to compose yourself. Your ears ring from the prolonged cannon thunder, and all you hear is a muffled hum. The smell of smoke stings your nose, but you barely notice it anymore. Your body feels battered, your arms heavy with fatigue. As evening falls, Smolensk is in your hands, but the sight that greets you is grim. Most of the city is burnt out or burning. You walk along the remains of a street where the houses are just black skeletons against the sky. Here and there, wounded soldiers sit leaning against walls, and medics move silently among them. No cheers, no victory cries fill the air. Only the crackling of the fires and the moans of the wounded break the silence. You slump down on a block of stone and let your head fall into your hands for a moment. In the light of the embers around you, you see the silhouettes of your comrades moving slowly, wearily. Smolensk is conquered, but tonight, no one feels like a victor. The night descends, heavy and glowing red, over a city in ashes.
The next morning, the sun rises over a still smoldering Smolensk. Under the pale sky, the city lies strangely quiet. You walk down to the bank of the Niemen River with several others to fetch water and wash away the soot and grime. The river water is cold and clear, and you splash it on your face. Black streaks of ash wash off your skin and mix with the current. Some soldiers wade in up to their knees, letting the water cleanse their aching feet. It is a strangely peaceful moment by the river, while the ruins loom silently behind you. Birds chirp gently in the thickets along the bank, unaware of the destruction nearby. Back in the city, the work begins. You join in clearing one of the streets of debris, planks, and scattered cannonballs. The smoke still stings your eyes a little, but you've almost gotten used to it. A short distance away, a group is engaged in a grim task, collecting the fallen soldiers, both friend and foe, for burial. You see them only in brief glimpses through the puffs of smoke, figures carrying stretchers with covered bodies in silence. Each spadeful of earth falling on a grave sounds heavy, even though the sound is faint. You lower your gaze and focus on your own task, while your thoughts drift away. A few hours later, you sit for a moment on a low stone wall that has survived. Your hand fumbles in your pocket for something to eat. You find a crust of yesterday's bread and chew it slowly. Your stomach churns. The provision depots in Smolensk went up in flames, so rations will be meager from now on.
A fellow soldier beside you shares a few dry peas he found among the ruins, and you crunch them as if they were nuts. No one complains aloud. Everyone is too tired. You let your gaze wander over the burnt-out remains of the city and try to count some of your closest comrades who are still alive. Many faces you were used to seeing every day are gone now. Whether they lie here or are being carried away wounded by the medical corps, you do not know. A sigh escapes your lips. It feels meaningless, all this life lost, and still the war is not decided. But you get little rest. The very next day, the order comes to prepare for a further march. The Tsar's army has escaped and is retreating towards Moscow, it is said, so the emperor will follow. You pull your worn uniform jacket tighter around you in the morning breeze and rise slowly. Your body aches, but you find your way to your ranks. With a final look at the plumes of smoke still rising from Smolensk, you sling your rifle over your shoulder. The drums roll faintly, signaling departure. Once again, you turn your feet towards the long road east as a new day dawns over the ash-gray ruins.
The days pass and September approaches. Tired and depleted, Napoleon's forces continue their pursuit of the Russian army. Every day you march a little closer to Moscow. Then, one afternoon, excited rumors begin to circulate through the ranks. The Russians have apparently finally decided to turn and fight. The name Borodino is mentioned by the officers as you are ordered to make camp. You notice a change in the atmosphere. A mix of relief and nervousness spreads. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for. The battle that could decide everything. You arrive at a wide rolling landscape by a river late one evening. On the other side, a few kilometers away, you see flickering lights, countless campfires spread across the darkness. It is the enemy. The Russian army has dug in on the heights over there. A faint smoke hangs over the fields between you, and the sky is a deep blue with a sliver of a moon on the horizon. As darkness falls, you make your own preparations. You help gather twigs and sacks of earth to build a simple breastwork at the front line. The spades cut deep into the dry soil. No one speaks loudly, only short commands and the sound of iron against earth break the silence. Out on the plains, you can glimpse dark shapes moving. Cannons being moved into position, cavalry patrolling cautiously in the foreground. Somewhere to your right, a short trumpet signal sounds, perhaps an order from headquarters. Your heart beats a little faster at the sound. The night before the battle weighs heavily upon you. You sit by the fire with your weapons ready beside you. Everyone is silent, lost in their own thoughts. Some try to eat a little of the meager rations. Others sharpen bayonets or write letters in the light of lanterns. You take a sip of cold tea from your canteen and try to moisten your dry throat. Far away, a melody is heard. It is said that the Russians are singing an evening hymn in their camp. The notes carry over the night air like a distant choir of voices, an echo of something homely in the midst of all the foreignness. Many around you listen and stare into the darkness where the sound comes from. Finally, you lie down on your cloak in the grass. The ground beneath you is cold and hard, but fatigue eventually makes your eyes close. Above you, the stars sparkle indifferently, as they always have. You try to push away the thought of tomorrow. Instead, you quietly count the stars you recognize from your home sky. In this way, you find a certain peace. Around you, the last sounds of the camp die down. In the darkness of the night, between two vast armies gearing up for battle, you feel a moment of peace within yourself. With your hand curled around the small good luck charm under your shirt, you close your eyes and let sleep come, while a faint smell of campfire smoke and autumnal earth envelops you.
September 7th dawns with a cool light. Fog lies thick over the hills of Borodino in the first hours of the morning. You line up in the ranks with your comrades before sunrise, musket in hand and gaze fixed forward. Your heart pounds heavily, but everything around you is strangely calm right now. It's as if the whole world is holding its breath. In the faint morning light, you can make out the Russian line some distance away. low earthworks and cannon positions barely visible as darker stripes against the horizon. Suddenly, a single cannon shatters the silence with a roar, then another, and soon countless cannon barrels open fire from both sides. The air fills with a deep rumbling, and the ground beneath you trembles slightly with each volley. Above your head, you hear a sound like a hissing wind, artillery shells whipping through the air. Some land with a deafening crash in the ground further back, others explode in the air with a sharp crack. But all of this becomes one continuous roar as the battle truly begins. En avant! Forward! The cry runs down the line. The officers swing their sabers, and you set your body in motion, almost without thinking. Ahead of you, the landscape opens up in a gentle slope towards the enemy positions. The soldiers around you shout a unified roar, but in your own head, the sounds are muffled, almost as if coming through water. You feel only your own breath and heartbeat, heavy and fast. Your feet move mechanically forward over uneven terrain. The sun breaks through the smoke just as you reach an open plain. In glimpses, you see scenes around you. To the left, cavalry storms forward, silhouettes of horses and riders etched against the dusty air. To the right, artillerymen struggle to pull their cannons closer to the front. Ahead of you, hundreds of musket muzzles from the Russian line flash like small sparks before clouds of smoke billow out. Bullets whiz by like angry wasps. A soldier right next to you is suddenly jerked aside and falls without a word, but you must keep running, overwhelmed by the raw power of the moment. You clash with the enemy at a field fortification, an earthwork armed with cannons that send volley after volley into your ranks. It becomes close-quarters combat, chaotic and intense. You fire your musket at a shadowy figure in front of you and feel the recoil slam against your shoulder. When the smoke clears for a second, you see Russian soldiers retreating from the rampart. Around you, French grenadiers climb onto the breastwork, waving their shakos and shouting. You climb after them, breathing heavily, and get a glimpse of the other side. A valley already in turmoil. Running men, riderless horses, ambulance wagons at a gallop. But victory is not yet secured. New ranks of Russian infantry form up further back. You hear the cry, "Ura!" from the enemy side as they prepare a counterattack. You are hastily ordered to fortify the position. With trembling arms, you stick your bayonet into the ground to pile up loose earth as makeshift cover. Sweat runs down your forehead and mixes with the grime of gunpowder smoke on your cheeks. Around you, the air is heavy with dust and sulfur. You cough, but barely have time to catch your breath before the din of battle rises again. Drums roll behind you, reinforcements are on their way. For a moment, you just stand there in the midst of the chaos, as if in a bubble of unreality. You notice something strangely beautiful. Across the battlefield, through the smoke and noise, the sun is now fully risen, a reddish-yellow disk that makes the sky burn. The contrast between this silent sky and the inferno on the ground grips you. Time seems to slow for a second. Then reality pulls you back in. You throw yourself down as a new volley of cannon fire strikes. The ground shakes. Shrapnel and earth rain down on you. You feel a warmth in your calf and realize a shell fragment has torn open your trousers. The pain is sharp, but manageable. You can stand, you can fight on. With gritted teeth, you stand up and prepare for the next wave. The Battle of Borodino is in full swing, and you are in the middle of it, all senses heightened and heart pounding as the morning transforms into one of the longest days of your life.
Time loses all meaning inside the red-hot chaos. It must have been hours since dawn, but you hardly know if the sun is high or low. The sky is obscured by gunpowder smoke and dust anyway. Your body moves on sheer will now. Your uniform is soaked with sweat, and your mouth is as dry as sand. You alternate between shooting, reloading, and charging forward, retreating and shooting again, over and over. The battle ebbs and flows, and it is impossible to say who really has the upper hand. At some point in the middle of the day, you find yourself near one of the main positions, the great redoubt in the center, where the battle rages most fiercely. A deafening volley from French cannons has just hammered the redoubt, and as the curtain of smoke blows away, you see our cavalry charge towards the height. Horses rear and men fall, but miraculously some break through.
A resounding cheer rises from the French ranks as the tricolor briefly waves over the captured cannon position. You find yourself shouting along, hoarse and uncontrolled, driven by a desperate hope that this means the end. But the battle does not subside. Again and again, new attacks and counterattacks come. You run to get more ammunition from a wagon that has come up. Your hands are shaking so much that you almost drop the powder charges. Not far away, you see a medic bandaging a wounded officer in the midst of all the chaos, as if they were alone in the world. Somewhere behind you, a horse stumbles helplessly to the ground, a heart-wrenching sound that you try to block out. Finally, late in the afternoon, you notice that the Russian volleys are becoming more sporadic. The smoke drifts away a little with a faint breeze, and the sun peeks out again, glowing red in the setting sky. You sink down behind an overturned ammunition cart and greedily drink the last drop of water from your canteen. Your hands are black with gunpowder and dirt. They tremble uncontrollably as you lift the flask. Your ears are ringing loudly. Everything else is as if wrapped in cotton wool. Around you, you see soldiers collapsing where they stand from sheer exhaustion, or wandering around in a purposeless trance, unable to comprehend that they are still alive. You wipe the sweat and dirt from your eyes with a tattered sleeve. Ahead, on the battlefield, you can glimpse the enemy lines beginning to withdraw. A few cannons still roar in the distance, but it seems that the will to fight is fading. Maybe, just maybe, it's over now. You rest your musket barrel on the ground and lean heavily on it like a staff. Your lungs burn with every breath, and intense fatigue washes through your body. In the approaching dusk, it is as if even the sounds you hear are far away, as in a dream. As the gunpowder smoke drifts away, you see the outlines of the ravaged landscape, piles of sacks and weapons, cannons sticking out of the ground at odd angles, and motionless figures strewn about. It's a sight you know will haunt your dreams for a long time, but in this moment, your mind is too numb to react. You just breathe. You are alive, and evening is falling on the field of Borodino.
Darkness finally falls completely over the battlefield at Borodino. A cool night air drifts in and the stars begin to peek through the wisps of smoke. After the roaring inferno earlier in the day, the silence is almost overwhelming now. Only occasional cries and moans from the wounded break the night's peace, along with the crackling of small grass fires that are still smoldering here and there. You walk slowly through what was once the front line, with heavy, stiff steps. In your hand, you carry a small lantern that casts a flickering light on the trampled ground. Around you lie shadows that were men just a few hours ago. You try not to look too closely, but you still register the faces of fallen comrades in the brief flashes of light from the lanterns around. Your heart feels empty and heavy at the same time. Somewhere nearby, you hear a faint voice calling for help. You hurry toward the sound and find a young soldier leaning against a broken cannon wheel. He is holding his stomach and shivering, but he is alive. Carefully, you kneel beside him and give him a sip of water from your canteen. He squeezes your hand with surprising strength, his eyes meeting yours for a moment in gratitude and pain. You say a few soothing words, whispering that he is not alone. After a while, a stretcher with medics arrives. They take care of him, lift him gently, and carry him away towards the field hospitals being set up behind the front. You stand up again, feeling your body protest. Every muscle is sore and exhausted. In the distance, you see torches and lanterns moving across the field. They are patrols searching for survivors through the night. In some places, you hear short shouts when they find someone alive and call for a stretcher. Other times, a hushed farewell as one of their own is identified among the dead. Every sound hangs in the cold night air like small ripples in the silence. You shuffle back towards the camp. Napoleon's tent glows faintly a short distance away. The emperor himself is said to have surveyed the battlefield at dusk, silent and withdrawn. No victory parade was held tonight. The victory here feels hollow. You sink down by the remains of a fire that is now just embers and pull your cloak around you against the cold. Your eyelids are heavy, but the turmoil in your mind has not yet settled. Your gaze seeks comfort in the stars again. They shine unchangingly as they did the night before, as if nothing mattered to them. With a deep sigh, you lie down on the hard ground among your surviving comrades. You know that at dawn you will march on towards Moscow. But tonight, all you can do is let exhaustion take over. To the sound of distant shouts and a gentle night breeze sweeping over the ruined landscape, you drift off into a heavy, dreamless sleep.
A week after Borodino, you continue eastward towards the great prize, Moscow. The roads are covered in dust and ash from the battle, but the landscape gradually becomes more inhabited the closer you get to the city. You march past manors with closed gates and abandoned villages where a few old people peer out fearfully from behind shutters. You notice that even the animals seem to have fled. Pastures are empty, no cows or horses to be seen. Then, one afternoon, the ranks break into excited murmurs. Ahead of you, far in the distance, you glimpse the domes and towers of a city. Moscow, the whispers go. A new energy spreads among the exhausted soldiers. Backs straighten a little. The pace quickens despite aching feet. You feel it yourself, a thrill of anticipation. After all these months and hardships, the goal is within reach. Late in the day, on September 14th, Napoleon's advance guard marches through the outskirts of Moscow. You yourself enter the city a little later with your unit. What you expected to encounter, perhaps a delegation surrendering the city, curious citizens, or at least a bustling life, is completely absent. The streets you march into are eerily quiet. Grand buildings rise on all sides, onion domes covered in gold that glow faintly in the afternoon sun. Wide avenues with flagstones, magnificent aristocratic palaces. But there are almost no people. Some windows are opened and slam in the wind, curtains fluttering out like ghosts. You hear the echo of your own boots on the cobblestones. You move deeper into the heart of the city. Here and there you see shadows scurrying away. A few inhabitants who did not manage or wish to flee are hiding from you. A half-open door reveals a pair of frightened eyes before it is slammed shut. The silence is almost as difficult to handle as the noise of the battle was. Your soldiers exchange glances. Everything feels unreal. This is the fabled city of Moscow, and it lies before you like an empty shell. On the Red Square, you take up your positions. The red walls and towers of the Kremlin loom over you, but still no official reception. Napoleon himself rides in and looks out over the deserted square. You are not far away and observe the emperor's face. Even from a distance, he looks bewildered. It is whispered, "Where are the Tsar's envoys? Where are the keys to the city, the procession?" Nothing of the sort comes. Moscow is like a quiet backdrop, abandoned before the performance. Finally, the order comes to make camp and billet wherever possible. You walk down a wide street with your squad, past magnificent, silent buildings. You can almost feel the city's soul, its millions of whispering stories. But now, all you hear is your own strained breathing. The sun sinks below the horizon, and a golden hue settles over the domes. You look around one last time before darkness falls. This is Moscow, you think, but it feels like a city without people, trapped in an enchanting and slightly frightening dreamscape.
You and 4 of your comrades find quarters in a brick house on one of the main streets. The house has been abandoned in a hurry. Jackets still hang on pegs, and a half-eaten meal is left on the kitchen table, now long cold. You feel a strange pang of conscience as you make yourselves at home, but the need for rest and shelter is too great. Carefully, you sink into an armchair upholstered in faded silk in the living room. Your body aches, and the chair feels almost too soft after months on the ground. For a moment, you close your eyes and let your head rest against the embroidered fabric.
The smell of dust and old wood surrounds you. The house is so quiet, you can hear the clock on the wall ticking steadily. Outside, darkness has fallen over Moscow. An eerie calm rests in the streets. A few shots were fired earlier. Discipline had to be restored when some soldiers started looting, but now even those impulses are subdued. Most of your company has found a place to sleep. You can hear snoring from the neighboring rooms and some muffled conversations from the street. You are still sitting in the chair, too awake to sleep yet. You look out the window. The moonlight shines palely on the empty streets and the grand buildings opposite. It is a beautiful sight in a way, like a magnificent city held in an enchanted sleep. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a distant shout. You stand up and listen intently. Then you see an orange glow flickering against the sky. In the next moment, the alarm bells start to ring. Fire! You hurry out onto the steps in front of the house. To the left, a few blocks away, flames are rising towards the night sky. The wind carries the smell of smoke and burning wood. More soldiers come out into the streets, and you see shadows rushing towards the fire, some trying to extinguish it with buckets, others just running past. Within a short time, fires break out in several places. You stand there watching as a tall building further down the street suddenly spouts sparks from its windows. The flames dance wildly, reflecting in the window panes of the surrounding houses. You can feel the heat from a distance and have to shield your face. Sparks swirl up into the black sky. Ash falls down on you like a strange, silent snowfall. You desperately try to contain the fire. You form a makeshift chain with some others and fetch water from a well behind the house, passing buckets from hand to hand. But the water does little against the inferno that is now spreading with the wind. The hours pass in frantic toil. The smoke stings your eyes, you cough and pant. In the end, you have to retreat so as not to be trapped by the flames yourselves. As dawn breaks over Moscow, large parts of the city are on fire. You stand on the Red Square with hundreds of exhausted men, watching the sea of flames around you. The Kremlin buildings behind you are saved, but the surrounding quarters are ablaze. It is a sight that both fascinates and terrifies you. An entire great city burning, with towers sticking up through the smoke and sparks. The sun rises red through the dense, smoky air. All you can do is witness the destruction in silence and wonder, as a rain of ash lays a gray veil over Napoleon's army and the abandoned city.
Eventually, the fires die down, and a strange, everyday silence settles over occupied Moscow. Weeks pass without combat. You spend your days in a surreal routine, in such a large and magnificent city, but with almost no inhabitants. The soldiers spread out to find food, firewood, and other necessities. You have been tasked with helping to gather provisions, so you often wander through destroyed markets and storage sheds on the outskirts of the city. Sometimes you find sacks of flour that have escaped the fire, or a cellar with potatoes. Each such discovery is distributed and brings a little life to the campfires in the evening. But supplies are limited. The rations become meager again after the first stores are emptied. Time flows strangely in this waiting period. The days are still mild. A golden autumn spreads over the city's avenues. The trees in the parks are changing color to ochre and red. In the afternoon, you like to walk through an abandoned garden by a mansion where you are staying. The leaves rustle under your feet as you think about everything that has happened. Sometimes you sit on a stone bench by a wooden fountain that is now dry. It is almost possible to forget the war for a moment. One could imagine being just a traveler resting in a quiet city in October. The evenings get cooler each week. You have started to wear the thick officers' coats and all the blankets you can find. In the half-burned house where you live, you have gathered furniture and wood to light the fireplace. Every evening, a small group of you gathers around the fire.
The flames paint dancing shadows on the walls as you exchange stories or just stare into the embers. You have found an old book in the house, a worn volume with Russian script you don't understand, but the illustrations of landscapes and people in calmer times give you something to rest your eyes on. It becomes a form of meditation. You slowly turn the pages while the others doze, letting your imagination weave itself into the pictures. Some days you write letters. You still have paper and ink from the city's empty offices. You write down your thoughts, describe Moscow, the vast temples with their onion domes, the deserted streets, the incredible fire. Perhaps these letters will never arrive, but just putting words on paper soothes the unrest in your chest. One of the officers collects some letters in the hope of having them delivered via scouts back to Poland. You hand yours over, with a silent wish that your loved ones will one day read them. News is scarce and silent. You hear rumors that the emperor has sent letters to Tsar Alexander to negotiate, but that there is no reply. Days turn into weeks. Some soldiers begin to long for the front again. Better combat than this dull uncertainty, they say. Others enjoy finally having a roof over their heads, even in a ruin, and are in no hurry. You yourself feel a mixture. You appreciate the calm that allows you to heal your body and gather strength, but in your heart an unease smolders. Winter is approaching. Every morning the frosty breath hangs a little thicker in the air when you exhale. Under the pale October sky, you sense that this surreal pause must soon come to an end. One evening, you notice that the last leaves have fallen from the trees in the garden. The branches stand bare against the gray sky. It is as if nature itself is telling you that time is running out here.
The morning comes when the order finally sounds, retreat. It is mid-October, and you notice a tingling mix of relief and concern among everyone. Relief because the uncertainty is over, something is going to happen, and concern because it now means you have to make the long journey back through lands you yourselves have ravaged, and winter is at the door. You wake up early that day and immediately notice the silence outside. When you look out the window, you see that a thin layer of white frost and fresh snow covers the roofs and streets, the very first snow. It is like a harbinger from winter itself. You swallow and feel a knot in your stomach. This is the latest possible time to start the journey home, you think. Packing and departure take place at a subdued pace. The soldiers have collected everything they could in Moscow: blankets, paintings, copper pots, gold candlesticks, treasures from the abandoned homes. Now many try to attach these spoils to already tired horses and overloaded wagons. You yourself pack your knapsack as best you can, with some extra clothes you found and a little dried food. A handkerchief embroidered with Russian initials, which you took as a souvenir, you tie around your wrist under your sleeve. A last memento of this adventure that became a nightmare. Napoleon and the Guard divisions march out of the Kremlin first. No cheers follow them, only the cold wind sweeping over the black remains of burnt timber. You walk in your troops' ranks down the main street you entered 5 weeks ago. The sight of the burned-out facades and the deserted square stings your heart. This was the goal of victory, and now you are leaving it in ashes. Some comrades mutter curses on the damned city that took everything from them. Others are silent, with empty gazes fixed forward. As you pass the city gate, you take a final look back. Moscow spreads out behind you, quiet under a hazy, pale sky. A few plumes of smoke still rise from the ruins, and the thin layer of snow gives everything a ghostly veil. You pull your fur coat tighter around your body. Then you turn your gaze westward, where the road leads, back towards your distant homeland. The army sets off from Moscow without fanfares or honors.
Just a long column of tired people, many with wagons and carts loaded with everything they still own. You exhale and see your own breath as a cloud in the cold air. Now a new ordeal begins, the retreat through the land you came from, only now everything is turned upside down. With heavy steps, you march out into the frozen autumn landscape, well aware that the fight for survival has just begun.
The retreat begins with cautious optimism. You are moving south towards new areas that are not yet depleted. Hope spreads that you might find food and better roads that way. You yourself feel a small lift in spirits despite everything. The trees along the road still have some leaves. The villages you pass in the first few days seem untouched by the war. Perhaps this can really be the way home with some dignity intact. But the optimism is short-lived. A few days into the retreat, you hear the thunder of cannons ahead. Kutuzov's army has cut you off at a small town called Maloyaroslavets. Soon wounded soldiers and riders drift back along the road toward you with horror in their eyes. You are tasked with standing guard by the roadside as regiment after regiment streams back from the front. The faces of the passers-by tell everything. A new battle has shattered the hope of an easy escape. After a full day of fighting, the Russians withdraw a little from the town, but Napoleon's plan for a more southerly route is in ruins. You march into Maloyaroslavets the next day through ruins that are frighteningly familiar, another town burned to the ground. The stench of death hangs heavy in the streets. Both French and Russian fallen lie scattered where the fighting was fiercest. You hold your scarf over your nose and hurry through with your heart in your throat. It is like a bad dream repeating itself from Smolensk and Borodino. Charred houses, destroyed cannons, lives ended. The order quickly comes to turn back northwest again. You have to return to the road you came from, through the already plundered and destroyed regions, via Smolensk. This news sinks in heavily with everyone. I see dejection in the eyes around me. We are to retrace our own old footsteps, only now the autumn has grown colder, and the enemy is nipping at our heels. You adjust the straps on your pack and follow the column that is now taking a new direction, a direction into a known wasteland. Snowflakes begin to fall lightly as you leave Maloyaroslavets behind. They melt on your cheek, but they are a warning of what awaits. The mood is dark. No one says anything aloud. One of your comrades just whispers bitterly, "We leave hope here." You say nothing, but in your chest burns an anxiety you cannot deny. Winter is drawing closer every day, and now you know that you have to go through hell one more time, backwards.
Shortly after, winter arrives in earnest. One morning in early November, you wake up to a transformed world. During the night, a heavy snowfall has covered the landscape in white. The tents and bivouacs you set up are almost buried, and a biting cold has set in. The temperature has plummeted far below freezing. You fumble out of your felt blanket, and the air tears at your lungs like knives. Everything is silent, no bird sounds, only the wind whistling over the flat, white fields. The march now becomes a matter of pure survival. The snow is deep and makes progress desperately slow. The road you followed is gone under a white blanket. The soldiers tramp up a path, but with every kilometer, the line of men seems to thin out. Many cannot keep up and fall behind. You look back sometimes. Dark dots are scattered behind you towards the horizon. Whether they are resting or have given up is unknown, but the column does not stop for them. The worst enemy now is the cold. You feel it as a persistent ache in your fingers and toes, as if they are gradually turning to ice. Your nose and cheeks are constantly numb. Many around you have cloths tied around their faces to protect themselves from the frost, yet you see white patches on their skin, signs of frostbite. You yourself wrap yourself in everything you own, the thick coat over your uniform, a woolen blanket wrapped around your shoulders, your hands deep in your pockets as you clutch a small piece of bread to keep it from freezing solid. Every night the temperature drops even lower. You make small fires when you can find wood, often from the wreckage of broken wagons or timber from abandoned houses. But the wood is frozen and burns poorly. When darkness falls early in the afternoon, everyone huddles together in tight clusters to share body heat. You barely sleep anymore. You just close your eyes and drift in and out of a daze while your teeth chatter uncontrollably through the night. Screams from those who lose their minds in the cold sometimes cut through the darkness, but they die away. In the morning, you always find some who have frozen to death during the night, stiffened in the same position they lay down in. You don't have the strength to bury them. The frozen ground is as hard as stone anyway, so you leave them behind, small white mounds under the snow. On the days it doesn't snow, the sky is a sharp blue and the sun is dazzling against the white ground, but it provides no warmth, only a kind of untouched icy light over the tragedy. You look up at such skies and try to remember the warmth of the summer sun earlier this year. It feels like another life. Now you just count steps, one by one, focused on keeping moving, because if you stop for too long, you know the cold will embrace you and never let go.
In the midst of this icy desperation, you still find glimpses of humanity and solidarity. On a starlit night, when the cold bites the hardest, your small company has managed to light a tiny fire in a sunken road, sheltered from the wind. The flames are barely larger than a hand, as wood is scarce, but everyone sits closely around to catch a bit of the warmth. You see the faces of your surviving comrades in the glow, hollowed cheeks, chapped lips, eyes shining with exhaustion. Yet here you are together, alive, this night. One of the oldest soldiers, a veteran of the Italian campaign, breaks the silence. With a hoarse voice, he begins to sing a slow, soft melody, an old French song about the homeland, about vineyards and summer breezes. The notes are faint at first, but you recognize them. You heard them in a tavern back home once. One by one, more join in, as best they can with frost-stiffened vocal cords. Soon, a low, multi-part song fills the narrow, sunken road. The words are about warmer days and dear faces far away, and even those who don't know the language hum along as they can. You feel a lump in your throat, but also a warm feeling in your chest. The song envelops you, making the horror around you fade a little for a few minutes. Some shed silent tears that freeze to their cheeks almost instantly, but the smiles they give you testify to their gratitude for the moment. When the song fades, the silence that follows is filled with a little less pain than before. A Polish soldier on your right coughs and clears his throat. Then he begins a playful verse from a mazurka he remembers from his childhood. It is livelier, and a couple of guys laugh hoarsely when they hear it. You gently tap out the rhythm with your hands against your bodies so as not to lose heat. You contribute a little song from your own region as well. At first you hesitate, but the others look at you encouragingly, and soon the melody plays out into the cold air. It's a lullaby your mother used to sing. In this moment, around an almost dead ember, you are all children of some home, united in your longing for safety. When the songs fall silent, a young officer takes out a hip flask that he has saved throughout the campaign. Without a word, he lets each person have a careful sip of the strong, warm drink. You feel it burn lightly in your chest as a reminder of life. Finally, it's your turn. You close your eyes for a moment as the liquid chases away the cold for a second. A collective sigh passes through you. You huddle even closer together as the fire dies out completely. Above you, the stars glitter sharply. And in this brief respite, as you listen to the calm breathing of the comrades around you, you realize that even in despair, there are pockets of warmth and hope. These small moments of fellowship give you the strength to continue, if only for one more day, one more hour, one more step.
Day after day, step by step, you fight your way westward. Each day gets a little shorter than the last. Dusk comes early, and dawn brings no comfort, only new challenges. You cling to a hope. Smolensk, the city you captured on the way in, with its walls and storehouses. Rumors circulate that there are supplies and perhaps refuge for the survivors. For many, the name Smolensk has become a mantra. If we can just reach Smolensk, everything will be a little better. When you finally glimpse the ramparts of Smolensk one day in November, there are hardly any warriors left, just an exhausted mass of starving people. You feel your heart pound with anticipation as you stagger through the city gate. Inside, the streets are filled with chaotic scenes. Thousands of soldiers who arrived before you fill the squares and courtyards, all desperately searching for food and warmth. Horse carcasses lie by the roadside. They have long since been butchered for meat. A swarm of emaciated men push and shout around a warehouse where bread is supposedly being distributed. You throw yourself into the crowd at the bakehouse. The smell of something edible, flour, grain, drives you forward. Fights almost break out over every loaf of bread that comes out. You manage to grab a small, hard piece of bread that you press to your chest like a treasure. Around you, people eat ravenously, some so fast that their bodies can't handle it, and they collapse shortly after. You learn from watching them. Even though you are famished, you force yourself to take only small bites and let your stomach get used to nourishment again. The dry crust tastes heavenly on your tongue, even though it barely takes away the dizziness from hunger. Smolensk gives you a brief respite. You find a partially intact church where you crawl in with a dozen others to rest. Inside it is cramped and damp, but you are sheltered by the wind for the first time in a long time. Some fall asleep immediately on the stone floor, as if it were a feather bed. You lean against a cold stone wall, wrap your coat around you, and let your eyes rest. Your hands, trembling with exhaustion, you fold in your lap. Through a half-sleep, you hear one of the men sobbing quietly. He has found a dead friend in the crowd outside, you are told. But his tears are silent now. He is too dehydrated to cry. This refuge does not last long. After only 2 nights, the message comes: the enemy is approaching. The Russians are on your heels, and you must move on before Smolensk is surrounded. You look around at the apathetic, sick figures in the church. Many can barely stand up. But the choice is between dragging yourself on or being captured or killed. So one by one, all who can rise with a faint groan. You help a young recruit up. He is almost blind from typhus and frostbite, but he clings to your arm. Together you stagger out into the daylight again. Smolensk disappears behind you in the grey November fog, and with it, the last illusion that there was a safe place to go. Now, there is only the road, the cold, and the long, bitter return journey left.
The road west after Smolensk becomes one long state of emergency. The army, if one can still call it that, is now split into several columns, struggling forward at different speeds. You stay as close as you can to your officer and your remaining comrades, but you quickly realize that control is slipping. Russian pursuers lurk everywhere in the shadows. Cossack patrols sweep around like wolves, picking off the weakest on the fringes. One afternoon, a thick fog settles around you in a wooded valley. The sound of hooves on frozen ground and war cries suddenly explodes from both sides. Cossacks! They charge forward with lances and sabers, screaming their wilderness cries. You and the others near you barely have time to rally. Instinctively, you dive to the side among some fir trees.
You press yourself to the ground behind a fallen log as the horses thunder past. Through the gray light, you see a Cossack with a fur hat and spear rush past right beside you. He is screaming and has his eyes fixed on the main column, more interested in easy prey than in you hiding. A few musket balls are fired from our soldiers, but most of the weapons have damp powder or are out of ammunition. The attack is over as quickly as it came. After a few minutes, it is quiet again, except for the groans of a few wounded by the roadside. The Cossacks have disappeared with some prisoners and whatever they managed to loot. You crawl out from your hiding place, trembling. One of your friends is gone, perhaps taken, perhaps he ran deeper into the forest. You don't know. Thus, the days pass in anxiety and unpredictability. Constant ambushes and harassing fire from the enemy keep your nerves stretched taut like bowstrings. Every time you pass through a wooded area or a narrow ravine, you expect the next attack. Sometimes you just see a cloud of snow swirl up on a distant hill. Then you know that a Cossack raid has hit another part of the column. Other times, artillery fire comes from a ridge, and shells land in the middle of the exhausted ranks, spreading panic before everything becomes quiet again. You are like a wounded herd of animals being mercilessly hunted by predators. One night, you suddenly find yourself separated from the main group. You, along with about 20 others, took a wrong turn in the dark and ended up on a side road. By the time you realize the mistake, it's too late. The connection with the rest is broken, and you hear enemy signal horns nearby. The officer with you decides that you must hide until dawn. You find an old burnt-out shed behind some trees and huddle together inside, completely silent. Through the cracks in the planks, you see torches moving some distance away. Searching Cossacks, perhaps. You place your hand over the mouth of a younger soldier who is about to hyperventilate with fear and nod reassuringly. Everyone holds their breath as the sound of hooves gets closer, then fades away. At dawn, you sneak out and make your way west using a compass bearing. Amazingly, you meet the main trail again later that day, to the sight of familiar faces. It is a relief that almost makes you laugh and cry at the same time. You made it through the night. But the joy is short-lived. The sight that greets you on the road reminds you of reality. A long line of the dying and abandoned strewn along the roadside. In the snow lie exhausted men who could go no further. Some call out weakly for water or help when they see you, but there is hardly any strength to help them. You can only give one of them a last sip from your flask and a pat on the shoulder before you have to hurry on. Your heart feels as heavy as lead as you leave him there. The enemy is close behind, and you know that in a few hours, those left behind will either be dead or in captivity. Thus, you lose fragment after fragment of your company. Yet you walk on, stiff with cold and fear, but driven by the thin thread of will that remains. You hear one of the officers mutter a promise that if you can cross the great Berezina River, your chances will improve. Berezina. The name strikes you with new fear, but also a spark of direction. Over there somewhere, many days' march ahead, lies the bridge back to safe territory. Before that, you must survive these endless, bloody days of being hunted and fleeing.
After weeks in winter's iron grip, you finally reach the Berezina River at the end of November. It is an enormous river, now partially covered with ice along the banks, but the main current flows black and strong. You arrive there at dusk. Before you, you see thousands of soldiers crowding along the riverbank, most of them in disarray. The only bridge that existed here has been blown up by the Russians. On the opposite side, a few kilometers downstream, the campfires of enemy forces are smoldering. You are trapped between two Russian armies, one behind you, one in front of you on the other side. You feel panic prickling your chest as the gravity of the situation dawns on you. But Napoleon's engineer soldiers throw themselves into the icy water without hesitation. They begin to build railings and foundations for new bridges almost immediately. You and several others are called in to help gather timber, wagon parts, anything that can float. With frozen hands, you drag planks and ropes while the enemy's drums are heard faintly in the distance. The goal is to get a crossing ready before the Russians attack in full force. The night of November 26th is one of frantic work. The cold is extreme, but in your haste, you hardly notice it. Torches along the riverbank cast flickering light on the faces of the work crews. Ice floes drift in the river, scraping against the temporary piles with a hollow sound. You hear a man scream. He fell into the icy water and was pulled under by the current before anyone could save him. You sharpen your focus and pull in time with the others as a huge beam needs to be put in place. By dawn, 2 makeshift bridges are ready, miraculously. They sway and creak, but they hold. Immediately, a wave of desperate people streams onto them. You are pushed along in the throng heading for the west bank. Desperation drives people. Some even throw away their weapons to lighten their load as they run. You set foot on the planks and feel the river rushing right beneath. The bridge sways under the weight of cannons, horses, and men all at once. You move forward slowly, shoulder to shoulder with the wounded and civilians who have followed the army. From the rear there are cracks. The Russians have started to shell you with artillery. Cannonballs land in the water with great hisses, splashing icy water over the crowd. An explosion shakes the other bridge a short distance away, and you see it bend precariously, but it holds. People scream in fear, but there is no turning back, only forward over the icy abyss. Step by step, you cross the Berezina. Halfway across the river, you look up for a moment. The morning is hazy, but on the western bank you can make out the tree line that marks freer land. A hope is kindled. Maybe you can really make it across. Behind you, torches still burn along the eastern bank where the last ones are trying to get onto the bridges. You hear wagon wheels break and a splash as a cannon rolls off and sinks into the depths. But you continue, huddled among your fellow soldiers with your gaze fixed forward. The woodwork sways, but it holds. Soon, just a few meters left, and you set your foot on solid ground on the other side. You are across the Berezina. A trembling, relieved breath escapes your lips, but the danger is not over yet. The chaos is far from over.
You are now on the west bank of the Berezina. In the brief moment of relief at having crossed, you turn to look back. It is a scene of horror unfolding on the other side. Russian forces have now reached the riverbank from the east, and a wild battle is raging at the bridgeheads. You see dark masses of people fighting to get across the bridges. Screams and gunshots mix with the glint of sabers and bayonets. Suddenly, one of the pontoon bridges gives way under the pressure. A section in the middle collapses with a crash. Dozens of people are thrown straight into the icy water. A collective scream is heard before it abruptly falls silent. The ice floes quickly cover the surface again, like a cold lid over the tragedy. The last bridge is still standing, but is now being surrounded by the enemy on the other side. In the next moment, you see flames shoot up at the remaining crossing point. The French on the west side have set fire to the bridge to stop the pursuers. It becomes a flaming pyre over the river, while dark figures are still visible on the opposite bank, your abandoned comrades who didn't make it across. You have to turn away. The sight is too heavy to bear. Around you, drenched and frozen men sit in small clusters, too exhausted to react anymore. Some pray silently for those who did not cross. Others just stare blankly at the ground. Napoleon has lost a large part of his army at the Berezina. You all know that. But those who are left must move on. After a few hours' rest, you are forced to break camp once more. The enemy will soon find fords upstream or downstream and cross there as well. So you cannot remain by the river in grief or relief. With heavy steps, you stand up. Your body feels more like a shadow of itself. Many are throwing away everything superfluous now: wagons, chests, souvenirs from Moscow,
Everything is left behind in the snow by the riverbank. You yourself own little more than the clothes on your back and your weapon. You march away from the Bedtime into dense forests that cover the marshy areas west of the river. Night comes quickly, and with it, a paralyzing cold again. But something is different. You feel a faint, perhaps irrational sense of hope. The Bedtime was the last great barrier between you and the West. Now, all that remains is to get out of Russia. You know you are still being pursued, but it feels as if fate itself wanted you to cross that river. As you turn your head one last time and see the flickering light of the burning bridge far behind you between the trees, you let a promise form within you. You will go home. Perhaps only a small part of the army will make it, but you are determined to be among them. With that promise in your heart, you continue to put one foot in front of the other, through the snow and into the forests, to escape this icy land with your life.
Now only the final stage through deep winter remains. December has come, and the night darkness is almost constant. The cold reaches new lows. It is rumored to have been minus 30 degrees Celsius on some nights. You stop feeling the difference. Everything feels like one long, frozen twilight. The column is no longer a column, just a long line of individuals or small groups hurrying westward with what strength they have. No drums, no banners. Discipline is gone. You often walk alone in your thoughts now, a few steps behind or ahead of others. Your breath steams rhythmically in the icy air. The snow crunches under your feet with every step on the hard-packed snow. Each crunch is like a metronome keeping you going. Step, crunch, breath. Step, crunch, breath. Some nights you hear wolves howling far away. Whether they are following the army to feed on the dead, you don't know, but the sound makes the hair on your neck stand up the first time. Eventually, you can't be bothered to react. You just stare into the darkness with an empty gaze as you swallow the fear like a hard lump of ice. One late evening, you stumble upon a small group of 5 or 6 soldiers who have stopped in the middle of the road. They are standing still, facing south, their faces illuminated by a strange glow. You stop beside them and turn to see what they are looking at. And then you see the moon, a huge yellow moon that has risen over the bare trees. It reflects in the snow, painting the whole scene in an ethereal light. In this moonlit night, everything looks almost peaceful. The frozen rivers glitter faintly, and snowflakes glisten on the branches. One of the men says softly that it looks like Christmas back home. The word Christmas stabs you in the heart. Imagine, it's December. The holidays are approaching. At home, perhaps there are lights in the living rooms and the smell of pine and cakes. The contrast to the swath of death you are walking through is unreal. But you hardly dare to allow yourself the thought fully. You fear that if you dream too much, you will lose the will to put one foot in front of the other. And you must go on. Many have given up now. You see them daily, soldiers who just sit down in the snow without saying a word and remain seated until sleep and death take them. Every time you pass one, you force your gaze away and tighten your grip on your rifle. You have forced yourself to think of home, a mother, a wife, a child, whatever you hold dear, who is waiting. Whether they actually are, or if they think you are dead, doesn't matter. The illusion that you have something to return to has carried you through the darkest nights. So you keep walking. You barely feel your own feet anymore. They're like tree stumps under you. Your hands are wrapped in rags against the cold. Your fingers barely bend. Your face is hidden behind a woolen scarf against the sharp wind. Perhaps you look frightening, like a walking corpse, but around you, everyone is in the same condition. No one speaks. You are silent shadows under the moon. shadows gliding through a white nightmare landscape night after night. And yet, deep down, a spark that refuses to die out, the will to survive this and one day feel warm earth under your feet again. With that as your driving force, you continue undaunted, out of the forests and over the endless white plains, westward, always westward.
At last, after an endless trek, you get out of Russia's grip. In early December, you pass the sign for Vilnius, a city in the friendly Duchy of Warsaw. The thought that this is relatively safe territory gives you a final burst of strength. You half run, half stagger through the gates with a pathetic flock of figures that are all that's left of the proud Grande Armée. Inside Vilnius, you are met with shock and compassion from the city's inhabitants. People come out with blankets and bread when they see you. Some cry openly at the sight of the wretched men. You are almost overwhelmed. After months of hostility and desolate landscapes, kindness feels unfamiliar and moving. An elderly woman puts a woolen blanket over your shoulders while shouting something in Polish you don't understand, but the care in her voice is universal. A young boy hands you a steaming potato from the fire. You take it with trembling hands and murmur thanks as tears well up behind your eyes. The simple warmth of the potato in your hands feels like getting your life back. You and some fellow soldiers are guided into the living room of a small inn by local volunteers. Inside, it is cramped but cozy. A dozen half-dead soldiers have already collapsed along the walls. The innkeeper goes around pouring hot soup into bowls. You get a bowl and carefully sip the steaming broth. The taste of salt and cabbage fills your mouth. It is heavenly. But the warnings you saw in Smolensk stop you from gulping. You eat slowly, bit by bit, letting your body get used to nourishment. Some are not so wise or lucky. You see a poor fellow by the fireplace wolf down his meal, only to collapse a few minutes later. His stomach couldn't take it. He is gently carried aside to rest. You lie in a corner of the inn for a couple of days. Outside, the temperature drops dramatically once more, but for the first time in a long time, you are not freezing. There is a fire in the hearth and walls around you. The city's churches and halls are filled to the brim with the wounded and sick, you hear. Many die even here, now that their bodies finally relax and give in. The doctors do what they can. You have some frostbite on your fingers, treated by the gentle hands of a nun. It stings, but you smile gratefully at her. She calls you mon pauvre enfant, my poor child, with compassion in her eyes. On December 10th, Russian pursuers reach Vilnius and chaos breaks out again. But you are among the lucky ones who are helped out by local militia before the enemy takes the city. You fumble your way onto a wagon with a handful of others. The horse trots heavily out of a side gate, and you clutch the blanket around you as the city's towers slide away behind you. You have rested for a few days, enough to keep you alive, but no more. In the street, you see many French soldiers who were left behind, too weak to flee further. They lie peacefully in the snow, having passed away for good in a safe haven. Your heart weeps for them, but you must turn your gaze west once more. The journey is almost over, and you cling to the life you have left. Poland and safety beckon somewhere ahead through the winter night.
Finally, in mid-December, you reach the bank of the same river you crossed half a year ago, the Niemen, the border. But now you cross it in the opposite direction, back towards Poland. There is no pomp and circumstance this time, no fanfares at dawn, just a scattered stream of starving, ragged figures carefully walking over a makeshift ice bridge next to the ruins of the old bridge abutments. The water below is partially frozen, and icicles hang from the banks. You take your last steps on Russian soil with a storm of emotions inside you. Then you set your foot down on the West Bank. You are on Polish soil, friendly land. You have survived Russia. You stop for a moment and turn around. A pale winter light lies over the river. On the other side, you can make out the snow-covered forests stretching into the unimaginable empire you invaded. The silence over there contains all the voices that are now gone. Friends you lost, dreams that were shattered, the marches, the battles, the suffering. You think of those who did not come back, every single name and face you can bear to recall. A heavy gratitude fills you, that you are alive, mixed with sorrow and guilt for all the sacrifices. A tear freezes on your eyelashes as you whisper a silent farewell to the windswept landscape on the other side. Then you turn your back on Russia forever. In a camp in Poland that same evening, you sit by a campfire, not as a soldier in combat, but as a survivor on your way home. Around you, officers are counting what is left of the Grand Army, mere fractions, barely recognizable as an army. Napoleon himself left ahead for Paris to deal with the consequences. Now it is up to each man to make his way to the bases in Poland and Germany. But you let the practical worries go for now. You stare into the flames that lick peacefully up the log. For the first time in a very long time, you feel a deep calm begin to settle in. You are safe. A fellow soldier sits down beside you with a jug of a hot drink. You accept a cup of the steaming brew. It tastes like sweet milk with honey. Warmth spreads through your chest as you drink slowly. Above you, the stars peek out, as clear as that morning by the Niemen when it all began. You take a deep breath and smell the scent of campfire smoke and pine. Every sense in your body, which has been so long attuned to danger and hardship, now begins to relax. A sense of peace washes through you. You roll your cloak around you and lie down by the fire. The flames paint soft patterns on the inside of your eyelids. As you drift between waking and dreaming, you envision summers at home, the sunlit meadows, the family you will embrace again. The pain and cold that have defined you for months slowly fade, as bad memories often do. You are just yourself again, a simple soul who survived an incomprehensible journey. And as sleep finally takes you in its gentle embrace, you whisper a final promise to the night: never again war. Then you drift into the deepest sleep, safe under the starry sky, on the peaceful side of the river, while Napoleon's campaign in Russia lives on only in your dreams and memories.